Berserk is a legendary manga franchise, and for those who don't know, manga is essentially a Japanese comic book, usually illustrated in black and white, like is the case for Berserk. Unfortunately, Kentaro Miura, the author of Berserk, passed away tragically in 2021 at the age of 54. I personally did not read the Berserk manga before his passing, but after seeing the incredibly overwhelming outpouring of love that people had for the franchise, I felt like I had to go and read it because I've heard so many great things about it already. After catching up with the story up to the point where Miura passed away, I immediately wanted to try and make a replica of the sword of the main character, Guts. And yes, that is the name of the main character, not the sword. The sword is named the Dragon Slayer. Anyway, Guts it's an interesting name. It has a very dark origin in the manga. Plenty of hobbyists and cosplayers have made replicas of this sword in different mediums, so I ended up deciding to just go for it and see what I could do. I started off by modeling the sword using size estimations from the manga, and the hard part about this is that the way he illustrates the sword in the story changes a lot panel to panel. He uses different foreshortening techniques and different angles on the sword to give it a lot more gravity in the panels that it's in, and it's amazing. But it also makes it really hard to estimate how big the sword actually is. On top of that, the height of the main character Guts is greatly debated online. People seem to think that he falls somewhere between 6 feet to 8 feet, because Miura said that he was somewhere around 8 feet tall, which is insane, and I can't make a sword that big. So I decided to scale it down as if Guts were my height. As a result, the sword is still very large, but not quite as large as it's supposed to be in the manga. I modeled 3 holes through the entirety of the blade so that I could insert metal rods into it to give it a lot more stability, because I know a lot of 3D printed blades end up collapsing on themselves due to their own weight, and they aren't able to hold together very well. Next came the hardest part, and one of the most painful parts of the process, and that's the 3D printing portion. After the blade was printed, washed, and cured, I could finally assemble this behemoth of blade, and I realized very quickly that it was taller than I anticipated. I was trying to get it just a little bit over 6 feet. It's a little more than that. But I wasn't too disappointed because it's also closer to the scale that it is in the manga as a result. In the end, the sword ended up being about 77 inches tall from the bottom of the hilt to the tip of the blade, which is about 195.5 centimeters long. With it fully assembled and glued together with JB Weld, I could start sanding it down and putting up the finishing details. After many hours of designing and building, it was finally finished. But I'm really proud with how it turned out, even though the seams are still, pretty visible. But it's a beautiful sword, and I'm excited to mount it on my wall because I printed the sword The edges are incredibly sharp. With the paint over them, they're a little bit better now. But while I was painting the sword, I stepped past the blade and I cut my toe wide open. It was a very, very deep cut, and it was just from me moving past the blade. So now with the sword finished and everything, let's talk about how much it actually costed, as if it was worthwhile to make this thing out of resin. Right here we have 16 bottles of resin. So time to calculate out how much this all cost in total. We've got 16 of these, which each cost 30 bucks a piece. $60 worth of metal rods. $21 worth of drill bits that I had to use to core out some stuff. We got $70 worth of isopropyl alcohol for all the cleaning. And then we got $40 worth of paint. Ugh, that's the total right? That's a lot of money. Ugh. I love the sword. I'm happy that I was able to make it. But would I do it again? No. Do I regret doing it? Not really. So maybe it was worth it in the end. But tell me what you think. Would you buy this sword for $671? It's a behemoth. I've seen a lot of swords like this sell for more than that though. But they were made of different materials. And the metal one that was being sold was like 32 grand or something. Anyway, long story short, this is not the most expensive Dragon Slayer sword out there, but it's also not exactly the cheapest. There are foam versions of this that you can make yourself or buy for much cheaper. So, if you're gonna make a replica of the Dragon Slayer, I wouldn't recommend resin. But dang if it don't look cool. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the sword, and let me know if there's anything else large scale you would like me to print. That said, nothing too big, please, because I'm a little bit burnt out with resin printing after printing out this sword. So, yeah, any ideas in the comments? But if anybody asks for the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII, so help me.